Yep, we are live. How are you folks doing? Welcome
Uh,
to the beginning of September, or like the official beginning of September.
the beginning of hockey season.
Summer's over.
Thank God.
It's not over. It's 87 degrees out.
I know, it's beautiful out today.
I know.
There's a funny thing happened. So we were closing down our shore place, which is my wife and I have very different opinions on this because like I always think that, like you said, it's 80 degrees. It could be beautiful. These next couple weekends could be phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
And but she's of the mindset that when the kids go back to school, that's like the beginning of that, and you have to switch your head, and that's what you do. And I understand that.
I think with a family you have to do that. But I'll tell you what, when nobody's at the beach like now, I go in September when it's really hot, like just on a random day because no one will be there.
Well, you're absolutely right. And it was funny because the yesterday when I was going around, cleaning stuff up and trying to find a place to throw out an old sofa, walking down the beach there was pretty funny. It was amazing how many older people, that I was running into were saying that they were coming in the next 2 weeks or the weeks that they choose because all the kids are away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I personally like to have life around. I kind of like when kids are running around on the beach. I think it's a lot more interesting than that. But there's a lot of people. You're right. Russ. We are at the age now where
it's not even so much. I don't care if there's kids there or any other humans, but when the parking's a pain and it's just too crowded, that's all I'm talking about.
Way less crowded and
That's like going to the mall on Labor Day weekend. It's like the absolute worst friggin' time to go. And of course, stupidly, I was in Niagara Falls yesterday, and I said, "Okay, the outlet mall's here. It's an opportunity. There's sales. Let me go." And it's like took me 45 minutes to find a friggin' parking spot. It's just it's so annoying. So I can just imagine like when it's 85 degrees out and it's summer and you want to get to the beach and you have to park a mile and a half away and you have to walk.
I mean, what were you trying to buy that far in advance, Mike? Like rock salt and shovels?
No, clothes. It's a factory outlet.
Oh, I see.
Clothes.
Yeah, it's very, very funny. You're very true.
Let's just touch on the music because we always talk about music. The passing of Walter Becker over the weekend, which it's funny because I consider one of the best musical purchases I ever made. When remember when BMG was the thing, the compact disc club, and I got the Steely Dan box set called Citizen Dan. That is possibly the best purchase I ever made because every single album, every single song, and you just by listening to that, the talent of the writing and the musicianship of Donald Fagen and Walter Becker and the group that they put together. A lot of session musicians. I mean, he was 67 years old, and that's way too early for him to pass.
I mean, look, I loved Donald Fagen's solo album. I've loved a lot of the Steely Dan work, but for whatever reason, they haven't migrated onto my iPod. I definitely still have CDs.
Yeah.
Maybe this will make it happen. But, we all grew up knowing that they weren't a touring band, right? Like they just weren't going to tour. You're never going to see them. And then in 93, I did see them. Was it 93? Yeah, I think it was 93. I did see them in Philly at the Spectrum. That was actually like the first time they started re-touring in all those years. And they were great. And it was really fun to see them. Now, in the last 10 years, they've toured a lot because what they realized is, and I think it was Becker that came out with this. Now, again, I don't feel bad for them. They were multimillionaires. But he realized he couldn't stay retired based on record sales because record sales had kept them retired because they didn't need to do anything. They had royalties. There was just the two of them that they had to worry about. And so that's why they never toured. But then in their later years, they started touring because they needed money.
And they had that.
I mean, there's no way you can make it in the music industry now like the way they did. I mean, it's just it's not possible. Because you can do it, but you're not going to make a living doing it because touring is everything, And really,
and they probably had a big house to pay, more,
Oh yeah, and they had expenses. Back then you could get money from radio play. You still get some money from radio play. Guys like those still get money from radio play, but not enough. You have to get played significantly, very much. You have to play millions of times around the country, and they do, but not enough to really to make a living. Touring is, it's just crazy. You look at what people are, everybody's putting out there their songs for free now, and albums will come down in prices, and pretty much are free.
Well,
I
mean,
find them for free.
I mean, I'm going to see U2 tonight, and I have a feeling that if the music business was like it was 20 years ago, U2 probably wouldn't be touring. But now, because I think they really have to, and they have they're almost a guaranteed sellout in most places.
Oh yeah.
The 30th anniversary of the Joshua Tree is a good opportunity for them to go out.
Is that what this is? It's the Joshua Tree tour.
Okay. Yes, Joshua Tree tour. So
I saw them on that tour the first time around.
But Mike did inform me there's about 15,000 seats available, or what?
Well, this is the thing, and maybe they didn't. They played Toronto, they played Cleveland, they played Detroit.
So where are they playing? Are they playing the
outfield? They're playing at the stadium. They're playing at the Bills Stadium at New Era Field, and that's 7. And to bring this to hockey, this is the concern I had when they announced that outdoor game between Team USA and Team Canada. Now, it's not going to be on New Year's Eve. I think it's on like the 29th of December, Russ. But good luck trying to get 75,000 people for a team.
This is where, like, if this were 20 years ago, U2 wouldn't have a problem, right? But the demand for U2 is definitely down from what it was 20 years ago. It's not to say they're not still great. It's just supply and demand. Like, I just saw Green Day the other day at BB&T here, and I just went with strict lawn seats. Last seat in the house, but they were great. Like, the whole night cost me maybe $125. But tell everybody what U2's charging for floor seats for this.
It's over $200, and this is the reason why. And I don't remember if it was Zooropa or one of their. This was a tour maybe in the last 10 years that they played at the Sabres Arena at KeyBank Center, and the average ticket was $150. And I said, I will never go see U2 when it's like that. But they're selling upper deck tickets at the stadium for $35 on Ticketmaster, and now like people are scrambling on StubHub. You probably could buy a ticket for $10. So it's
and it's worth it. I mean, if you're in that area and you've never seen U2 live, it's worth it. I mean, they are one of the best live bands ever.
And I wished I could have seen them before. Like, I mean, this was on my bucket list. I wanted to. They played Shays, Buffalo, a smaller theater here. They played. Actually, it's funny. And in the late 70s or early 80s, when they put out their first album, they were touring like small clubs. And there was a club near where I live right now called Uncle Sam's. A lot of bands played there. And they screwed up the advertisement. They advertised the band as V2 instead of U2.
that is so funny. This is how
you're just one letter off, really. I mean,
it was really close enough. This is how old I am now. Really making me feel terribly old. But I waited out in line for tickets to the Unforgettable Fire tour.
Right, 84.
It would have been 84 at Gold Medal Sporting Goods. In Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which is like where you had to wait in line for a Ticketmaster ticket place to buy the tickets. So I got up early in the morning and stood out there and got tickets to that. I mean, that's.
Well, I mean, I saw him at Live Aid or listened to him because I was in the bathroom because you guys know the stories. And that was the only time I've ever seen or heard them live, but they were great.
They're phenomenal live. I mean, and they're still phenomenal live from all I've heard. I mean, they're in great shape still. Bono's voice is still awesome. He's the real deal. Like him or hate him or whatever. He's legit.
Oh, he's always been the real deal.
I mean,
I'm legitimate to what his beliefs are. He's actually a guy who has, he lives by his beliefs and his.
I'm looking forward to the show, and when he starts talking politics, I'll just do this for about 15 seconds, and then I can listen to the music, which I enjoy. I just, I don't need to be preached to. That's all.
Yeah. You'll get a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's the price I have to pay. So whatever.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to hockey. Should we? Shall we? Here we go. It's 1:16 for those of you keeping track at home. 1:17. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, September 5th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we do have some signings to talk about that happened over the weekend. The first one I think is the one I really want to focus on here would be out in Arizona, where Anthony Duclair has been signed to a 1-year deal. And we talked a lot about Declare on this. And this is definitely the kind of deal that I expected if he was going to sign there. I know they tried to trade him. They asked a lot, which is they should, because they gave up a lot to get him in their mind. So he is a valuable player who had a great rookie year. So and had everybody keeps saying he had a rough year last year, and he did, but he also didn't get much of a chance last year.
No, he got no chance last year.
So it's hard to sit there and say, but so he's back for a year, which puts him, I would say firmly into the trade deadline talks. Like he's going to be a trade deadline guy now. When you sign a 1-year deal and you're Anthony Declare,
maybe, but it's a new start with Rick Tocchet. If they put him together with Max Domi again, maybe that can spark his offensive abilities, which were very apparent 2 years ago. I don't think this is the end of him in Arizona. It's a workable number. I think it was $1.2 million. So, but he's an RFA, so they can still he's still controllable. It's still a question whether they want to keep him, they want to see it through with him, or they just are signing him because now they got him under contract and now they can move him. I think they're going to at least give him a chance.
I think they're giving him a shot too. I really do.
No, he gets a shot, but I see what you're saying, Eck, and I definitely agree with you. Just in the sense that they know they have a lot of young players on the way. It sort of seems like they're using him to buy time, and that's the level of commitment that they showed him really in 1 year. Now, if you want to say on the Arizona part, to be fair, he needs to show more, that's fine. But I believe he will show more. And then if he does, I think he still gets traded. I think that's the worst part of this is if Anthony Declare has a really solid first half, I still think he's going to get traded. And that's the worst part of this for me. I don't see them locking up anybody. And I'm not saying they should lock him up for a long time, but this was a chance. If he signed for 1 year, 1.2, they certainly could have signed him for like 3 years, $9 million, and that would have shown me a little bit more. And they, that wouldn't have locked them in, but it would have at least shown a level of commitment for him. Now he's like, hey, I got to prove myself. But it's almost like if he proves himself, he prices himself out of that team.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's very possible. And I think there's a lot of teams that do really want him and came close to getting him. And Arizona's sitting there saying, we want a little bit more. If he plays well enough, they can get a little more. And I think that's what this is sort of about.
And this is a guard against rushing, say for example, even though, Dylan Strome is a center, but there's been talk about possibly playing him on the wing. This is a guard against. Can
I throw out there that's insane to play Dylan Strome on the wing, just in my opinion.
There's some guys I get. Like, we've talked about a lot of guys. Even Patrick, if you want to give me some notion that Nolan Patrick's not going to get injured on the wing, I might listen to you. But Dylan Strome is a center or bust.
He's exactly the prototypical hardest thing to find in the NHL, a big scoring center. That's what he is. Right.
Yeah, but at
the corners, like I don't see him as a guy that could transition to wing either. Like I just don't see it.
But I know what you're saying, Mike. You're saying, okay, that could change the way that Arizona looks moving forward. When I get that, but I think at the end of the day, this team is too young to worry. It's too young and too many moving parts to even think about how they look because they're going to look so many different ways. And it could be something where they look a certain way here, a certain way there. They could come off to a great start with Tocchet. They could struggle right out of the gate. This is the hardest team to predict in the league in my mind, and it's to where they're going because they are young enough and talented enough that they could really be like one of those teams that just surprises everybody. I really do believe that. But at the same time they have they could go either way, and
they have such a talent base that they conceivably and I'm not putting undue pressure on them. They conceivably could be the Western Conference's answer to Toronto because you're talking about Keller and Strome.
Exactly what they are, Mike. I mean, they are exactly that.
Yeah, but we don't hear about Chychrun, and that silence is worrying.
Yeah. But here's the thing: we don't hear about Chychrun, but they are better than Toronto defensively, as far as it goes. It's there's no question about that. They're not as good offensively, of course, but they're pretty close. They have some players that could potentially be close, but they're better defensively, and we'll see where they are in goal. That's. I think that they made a great move there, so I think that they're in a good shape. They're in good shape there. I thought the trade they made with the Rangers. I mean, this is a team that it's just very hard to predict where they're going to be. But moving on to the other signing too. So I know we didn't talk about this, but I wanted to kind of segue into my blog today with this. I wasn't here last week, so to talk about the Vanek signing, really. But Thomas Vanek signing in Vancouver, definitely a surprise in a lot of ways. And one of those questions that my very good friends in Vancouver, who I met way back during the Olympics out there, who always say, what the heck are we doing? Are we rebuilding or what? And then this signing comes up, and they're like, I guess we're not rebuilding. We're signing Thomas Vanek. To which I said, no, you're getting Vanek for a really good price, I thought, and I think it's not going to hurt you. I don't think this is. I don't like that all or nothing rebuild concept, that people have to have.
Yeah, you don't have to be 100% committed to that, because the all or nothing rebuild is the Arizona Coyotes, and it's not gotten them anywhere.
It takes a long friggin' time, and Toronto was that, and it takes a long time. But Vanek is, I've said and I've talked to people, and know Vanek a little bit myself, and just the fact of the matter is, he is one of those players who plays better with skilled players. Flat out. Like if you put him with skilled players, he's looked a lot better. He looked better in Detroit when he played with skilled players. He looked better, he didn't look well good in Florida when he didn't play with skilled players. He had a tough time in Montreal when he wasn't playing with skilled players. There's certain situations you just put him in, he doesn't have that same thing. In Minnesota, he really struggled because he wasn't with skilled players. Here, I don't know if he's going to play with the Sedins, but if he does, which is I think what a lot of people are suspecting, that is you're playing with two of the most skilled players. So this could be great for Vanek. Now, that being said, let's bring you to use the Kevin Allen line, which I always like to use. That being said, let me throw this out. What are the Sedins? The Sedins are obviously on their contract here. They're going to be UFAs. They want to stay in Vancouver. There's no question about that. They've made it clear that they want to retire Canucks. They want to. That's where they want to be. They like it there. They also, though, the feeling among other GMs and other people in general and scouts is that they will, if things don't go really well and the Vancouver Canucks aren't in the playoff race, which is what a lot of people think could happen. If that does happen, they're not opposed to being a rental and then coming back and signing in the summer in Vancouver, because that'll make the Vancouver Canucks better. And they see that as a way of helping the Canucks and helping themselves in the future.
I don't think they're getting traded this late, though. That's the problem. Now,
I'm talking about a deadline trade, actually.
Okay, if you're talking deadline, it will depend on how the Canucks are doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's all
You're right.
They're still of the mindset. They're hockey players. They're like, we have a chance. They like the Vanek thing. They're of the mindset, talking to everybody I know, that they still think the Canucks are a playoff team and they're going to battle. I'm just saying, if it doesn't go that way,
right?
Well, they will probably opt to leave and probably want to leave together, which is still really funny. I mean, can't they be traded separately?
What you're saying, Eck, is that the Sedins will do what Matt Sundin did not do a decade ago.
Precisely, which Keith Tkachuk did do a couple times. Keith Tkachuk did, I think, was it the Thrashers or the Blues? I think it was the Blues he did it for, right?
Right, which is for the organization that paid you millions and millions of dollars for 20 years. You will go and live out of a suitcase for 2 months.
For 2 months and play for the Stanley Cup. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world.
But your blog today postulated on a couple teams, and I can tell you from the fit, Montreal makes a lot of sense. Toronto makes absolutely no sense, because
Montreal this morning, you said Toronto makes a lot of sense and Montreal makes absolutely no sense.
Well, first of all, Montreal's got the cap space, but Montreal does not have what I would think that Jim Benning would want in young assets to trade for the Sedin. If you want a first round pick, if you want Noah Juleson, fine, okay. Maybe they'd be shooting for more than that. I don't think Montreal is going to trade a good chunk of their youth, or what's remaining of their youth, to bring in two aging but quality veterans. Toronto, on the other hand, they have a lot of youth, but they don't have the cap space, even with Lupul and Horton and all those guys that they can put on LTIR. Maybe Vancouver could eat half the salary.
That could happen, and I was told that they do have more cap space. This is what I talked to somebody who is pretty high on Toronto, and he said who did confirm that this would make sense on some levels, and said that they did have the cap space to do it. It said it would depend. Of course, all this depends on scenarios. All this depends on where the Leafs are, where the Canadians are.
Yeah. If the Sedins were a pair of all-star defensemen, I would say Toronto, no problem. But Toronto would be expending assets to bolster an area where they don't need bolstering. They're loaded at forward. They need blue line help?
They're loaded forward as of now. Okay, that's why I brought the same question up. I said, okay, they are, but what if Van Riemsdyk is moved for a defenseman? What if so there's other situations where this changes, and then suddenly, Lou Lamoriello, who loves the Sedins, looks at these guys as bringing in 2 experienced guys for a playoff run. If you see the window in the East being pretty clear, which it might be, the Eastern Conference, has its has the Penguins, obviously, but say the Penguins are what they are. They're losing a couple players. They lost Bonino. There are people who think that the Penguins are a couple big injuries away from having issues. They don't have that that insurance policy anymore if they get one of those big guys hurt, or if they lose their goalie, which is a big deal. So they have to worry about that, right? So the Capitals are still going to be great, but in their own division, the Maple Leafs have a shot at winning it, which could put them on a course to get to the conference finals, which could put them in a situation where
there's one. I mean, and the team that, and I know there's a level of excitement right now in Toronto, and I'm trying to just sort of be, the devil's advocate here. I think that obviously there's a lot of talent there, and I think that they're obviously on an upward track, but I think their defense is not good enough, and they're very young, so there's a possibility of players having sophomore slumps. I think the team that everybody's overlooking in the Northeast, in the Atlantic, is Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay is the overwhelming favorite to win that division. And if Stamkos can stay healthy, and that's a big if. That team, I think, is the overwhelming favorite, even over Pittsburgh in the East.
Nah, I don't want to say overwhelming. I can't say overwhelming. No way.
Well, not like a 2-to-1 odds. I'm just saying, I think if Stamkos stays healthy, they have one of the best defensemen in the league. In Hedman, they have legitimately a superstar in Nikita Kucherov. Stamkos is a superstar as well. Their forward depth is great. Their defensive depth is better. You can criticize them, but I think the addition of Girardi to Strawman and Hedman and Coburn and that group, and Sergachev is probably going to make the NHL this year. And Vasilevsky, maybe there's something to prove there, but I think he could be one of the better goalies in the league. So I think if everything falls into place, they're tops in the East.
Nah, I still can't go there.
Okay.
They're close.
I think if they're healthy, they are. I mean, I agree with you what you're saying there, Mike. I do. I don't disagree with that at all.
They're one of the 3 or 4 best teams, yes.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, you're counting Girardi as a positive. That's a big if right there. I mean, that's Yeah.
No, I know. I got that. I have that. By the way, Russ, what you sent to me, I have on the doc here. I appreciate that. It's awesome. Absolutely. I'm more along the lines of Mike than Russ on the Lightning. I do agree with you. I think the Lightning could be the best team in the East, and everything's there for that to happen. It all has to happen, though. And what
I think's happening there, though, and I think it has nothing to do with players. I think the mojo for John Cooper is failing.
And that's fascinating, isn't it?
Well, to that point, Russ, when you are forced to move a talent like Jonathan Drouin because in general he doesn't get along with the coach or doesn't fit the coach's strategy or his MO, then that's a problem. Now he's gotten to a Stanley Cup final, he's gotten to a conference final, he's got a team laden with talent, but they missed the playoffs last year, and Stamkos' injury can be used as an excuse for that. But if they struggle again this year, don't be surprised if around January Cooper is a casualty.
And that's what I'm thinking. Like, I just see his power waning there, and I think if you asked ownership, they probably weren't thrilled that they had to trade Drouin.
Yeah. Oh no, they weren't. I mean, because obviously, when you put a draft pick up like that, and then you saw the skills they had. They made a good trade. I mean, I think that they forced. I think Yzerman would have traded him for less at some point, but they wasn't allowed to. I got that impression.
Yeah, when he was mad, yes.
Yeah, when he was pissed off, and I think that what's funny about it, everybody talks about it, and Yzerman, how patient he was and all that stuff. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he wasn't allowed to make a move. I heard that at least. I mean, I'm not saying that Yzerman's not a great GM. He's obviously a great GM, but I'm just saying that there are a couple sides to that story.
Yeah, but I actually think the greatness of Yzerman as a GM has been his ability to get players under contract for a lot less than people.
Yeah, he's done a great job with that, and that also again has a little bit to do with the fact of where he lives. I mean, that's another thing. You cannot discount that is probably one of the nicest places to live in the NHL,
and the state tax ramifications,
which helps you in the contract too. I'm not trying to take away from
no, but
GMs that have a lot more to deal with.
But put it side to side with Florida. Florida really hasn't benefited. Benefited from that advantage as much as Tampa has.
I'm gonna throw this out there though, because this is not to rip the Miami area at all, but just to compare it for a second. I spent time every year in the Tampa area because that's where my in-laws live. But I spent time this year because the Maccabi games my daughter played in the Miami area, and they're night and day as far as the main difference is not that it's not beautiful in Miami, because it is beautiful in Miami. It's actually warmer in Miami than it is in Tampa, so it's probably more beautiful there, but
less lightning.
Right, there's less
rain, yeah.
But Miami is a very crazy place because you have a more dispersion as far as poverty goes. You have all different kinds of things going on there. And the other thing that you really have in Miami is older people, and it's not just a Seinfeld joke, but Tampa has a booming young person society. Like there's
and here's the other thing, Tampa has real Tampa fans. Miami has a lot of fans from a lot of different areas that have moved there, and they're not that rabid. Like a lot of fans go there. You see, like when there's a Ranger game, there's a lot of fans wearing Ranger jerseys. When they're, and that's, you see a lot of that.
And you see that in Tampa too, though. I mean,
but not as much, not nearly as much.
No, I think you're probably right, but I think it's not as widely.
All I have to do is ask you this:
Yeah.
How many bars did you see dedicated to the Panthers, and how many do you see dedicated?
That's what I'm saying, and that I think has a little bit to do with the age also too.
Yeah, sure.
People go out to bars, but I do think that's. And there's a whole, and where the arena is, because where the arena is in Tampa, it's as if, you put it near South Street in Philly, it's in like a hipper, younger area. Maybe South Street's not that way anymore, but that's what I grew up with, South Street. So.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's just, I remember finding a couple, when I was out there for the Cup, I remember finding a couple of bars out there that were strictly like, hey, we're Tampa Bay Lightning first. And we're going to see that this year with strip clubs in Vegas.
Right.
And the Vegas Golden Knights.
Oh man, there are so many people who are already planning their first trip to Vegas.
I know.
Well, it's funny.
Literally have the most interesting.
My biggest disappointment in Chicago at the NHL draft was when the NHL schedule came out, and I noticed that the Leafs were playing in Vegas on New Year's Eve. There's no worse time or place to go on New Year's Eve than Vegas in terms of expense and things of that nature. And I said, there's no way I can go. If it wasn't like in the middle of January, I would have gone to cover the Leafs in Vegas, but there's no way I'm going to.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it. The Flyers are there in February 11th. Thinking that sounds like I'm a reporter, but I'm thinking man, it's pretty close to Valentine's Day. It might be a fun thing for my wife and I to go out to cover the game and then stay a couple more days. And that's what everyone's doing, right? So it is interesting. I
will tell you this: there was a funny moment. I spoke to Cody Glass at the NHLPA Rookie Showcase, and Jeff is pretty vocal, his dad, on Twitter. And I asked Cody about that, and he basically goes, yeah, my dad pretty much put everything about my life on Twitter, like everything, every moment. And it's funny because, not everybody's dad is a former hockey player, and still plays, Jeff. He's still trying one more go at it, I think. But you know what I mean? But most dads are just dads. But to him, he's just his dad, and he's still embarrassing him. It's funny.
It is really – I've dealt with some hockey dads, as I'm sure you have over the years, and it's – they're fat. Some of them are fascinating. They range all over the map, and just like you would expect, right? But there are some that are so incredibly intertwined. There are some that are just like, well, this is a good. I've even met dads who of guys who were drafted in the first round. It's like, this is a good thing for him to do. But he also, is a smart kid, and if he doesn't do this, he'll be all right. And the kid, it's a first round draft pick. He's doing pretty well. No, but you got to always rely on your education to get. You have those kind of dads, and you have the dads in the sixth round who are like, my son's everything, and it's just. it's hard as a dad of an athlete now. I know it's got to be incredibly hard to not to separate yourself from that. It really is difficult.
I mean, I think Cody already has more followers than Jeff too, but oh well.
Yeah, probably does, right? All right, so and now we talked about the two signings. Now there's a couple players. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, there was another signing that, and I wrote about it over the weekend, that I thought, in terms of a comparative, that it would have a little bit of an effect on certain players. And of course, I'm bringing it to the Leafs here when it comes to William Nylander. But the signing was Alexander Wenberg in Columbus. Oh, yeah. Now they signed him for 6 years, and if you look at him, he's been in the league for 3 years. Almost 3 full seasons, and he had 59 points in his last season, and he got a deal of a little under $5 million. Now, it's not exact, but he was a mid-first-round pick. Nylander was picked 8th overall. They're around the same age. Wenberg is playing center. And arguably he was the de facto #1 center last year for a very successful Columbus team. Nylander's still playing on the wing, and will probably play on the wing still this year. But when he comes up for a new deal next summer, everybody's thinking, $7.5 million, it's going to be Tarasenko. No, I'm telling you right now, the deal that Nylander signs with Lou Lamoriello as a very tough negotiator in terms of a contract, the deal is going to be closer to what Wenberg got, probably in the $5.5, maybe to $6.2 million range, and not $7 million, unless he blows the doors up. Unless he blows the doors off.
Wenberg is a different kind of case. I think they did the right thing with this, but I think that Nylander is going to be looking more at Pasternak, what he does, I think, than Wenberg. I think
no. See, here's the thing, Eck. Nylander is not a complete player. Lou is not paying all that money to a guy who's not yet a complete player. And if we see this,
I know what you're saying, but if he has that chemistry with Austin Matthews again, he
may not, because they may not allow him to.
If they don't let that happen, then fine. But they're not going to not allow that to happen because
no. Don't say that, because I'll tell you something right now. With the addition of Patrick Marleau, there is going to be a little bit of a move around in terms of line assignments. It is very possible that they put Marleau on Matthews' line and move Zach Hyman to the right side and put Nylander with Kadri and Komarov. He played a lot with them last year. It wouldn't be a great change, and teams do this. They will put themselves in a position to not have to pay somebody the big money.
Not this coach, not this GM, not that city. No way. They're gonna do whatever's best for their team. They're not gonna move him off that line if he's best. Now, if they think that's what's best for their team, then fine. But if he goes on there and plays,
not that far-fetched, even just from an operations standpoint, forgetting about the contract, that might happen. But I'm just saying, look at Sam Bennett. Nylander's a little better offensively than Sam Bennett, but Sam Bennett doesn't play a complete game either, and that's why he's having trouble.
Right, and that's what Atkinson is having.
That's why Pasternak's having trouble.
Right, actually, they're all sort of in that same boat, right? But
and Pasternak, it came out today that Pasternak is not using Tarasenko as a comparative. He's using Draisaitl as a comparative.
This is what I said last week. I know it came out today, but I'm just throwing it out there for heck of it. Because this is what we talked about on the show, because I talked to people in Boston, and I said this is why I said the trade was even possible before that, because I knew this was the case. This is what he is doing, and because he has Boston, the agent there feels like they have Boston in a weird spot because of their history, that they have these guys like that they can't let another great player go. They have to sign him. I think they're overplaying that hand a bit, and I don't know where this is going to give.
They might be overplaying it, but what I think is going to happen is in the end that the compromise will be around what they, if you shoot high by missing, you're going to get what Bergeron's getting in this high 6s or low 7s. If you shoot for $7 million, then the middle point is around what Marchand is making, and that's what they don't want. They want to make as close to $7 million or above $7 million if possible.
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen if Pasternak, let's say, holds out the beginning of camp, which now looks like a possibility. Anders Bork goes in there. They throw him in the Pasternak spot. He's not Pasternak, right? But he's a really terrific offensive player with a lot of energy and a lot of skill. If he just does anything, they're going to work that as leverage, and that's going to hurt Pasternak's deal. It really will.
I don't disagree with that, but I think that there's no way Pasternak's going to take less than 7. I don't think there's any possibility. I think it's going to be closer to 7.5, and I honestly think that 7. No, so Mike, you sit there and you say this, but if I'm Boston and you're Toronto and I'm offering you Pasternak for Nylander, do you make that trade?
No, because
if you Pasternak for Nylander, would you make that trade?
No, because right now you're getting another year of Nylander at less than $1 million.
All right, so for 1 year, but like skill wise, do you make this trade?
I think they're pretty comparable. I mean, I really do. I think Pasternak might be a better scorer, a better shooter. I think Nylander's a better playmaker. That's why everybody thinks they're going to move
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Right, and but also Nylander has shown chemistry with Austin Matthews.
Yeah, so let's just say this. I don't think William Nylander will score 34 goals in his career, but it'll probably be his career year. I think he's more of a 25-goal, 50-assist type of player, whereas I think Pasternak could score 40 to 45 goals.
Some of that has to do with the team they're on, though, too, because Nylander's going to have other players who are going to score on his line, wherever he is. Where Pasternak, doesn't have all the offense.
But actually, this is the thing, and I've seen Nylander play center at the American Hockey League level and with the Leafs briefly when he was a rookie. His skill set is more adaptive. He's better. He's a center. He is a center. I don't think he can play wing. He's played wing before, but I think his skill set, his playmaking ability, his speed is more a fit at center. And when Tyler Bozak leaves as a free agent at the end of this year, I'm fairly convinced that the Leafs are going to move Nylander to center. But I don't think that they're going to do that right now because centers make more. And I think that they're going to try to lock him up before he moves to center because it'll be cheaper to do that.
We'll see. I mean, but Pasternak's out there still not done. Athanasiou's still not done. We talked, and they're discussing things, but he's still also talking to the KHL apparently, which is not a great thing.
This is shooting shots across the bow. This is
again. You're talking to a league already in progress. Like,
I'm sorry, with the KHL, usually you guys know I'm 100% on board with that with KHL, but this case not so much because I've heard that he just wasn't happy with the coach in Detroit. And he didn't like the situation, so part of his thinking is he could go over there, he could maybe play for Team Canada in the Olympics. He could actually make a bigger name for himself, come back here and sign, and force himself out of there.
Now, let me ask this because I'm not laying the blame for their decline on Jeff Blashill, but how long is it before Blashill becomes is in trouble in Detroit?
At least another 3 years.
Yeah, he's got years because there's no.
I think they're going to give him 5 years altogether. I mean, I think that this is 2 years. This is year 2, right? So I think 5 because Holland is, obviously he had a great coach ever such a long time.
We're assuming now Ken Holland will be there beyond this year.
I think he will be. I mean, just talking to people.
I would say that's 50-50, Ak. I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. I didn't get any impression, and we had Kevin on here who knows him really well last week, and he didn't give us any impression that we'd asked him that very question, and he said he doesn't think Holland's going anywhere. I don't know. It's possible that unless they force him out and say you're gone, but
until I just look at it this way, I have no inside information.
Yeah.
Until a contract is signed or an extension for Holland, I'm going to have that thought in the back of my head.
Oh, of course, no, and that's of course that's going to be part of the negotiation, right? That's definitely going to go on. So yeah, before we get on to the main story today, which is our main thing, which is going to be going into the Blackhawks preview, we do have to watch Shea Weber ride a horse. So here you go. This is, we can't go on without this, right? All right, so here we go.
Is he riding a horse or is he racing a horse?
A racing horse. Sorry, racing. Sorry, this was inevitable. This is like the sharks. This is like the the shark race. Sorry, man. I'm losing my mind.
Russ? Who was it that raced the harness racehorse? Was it?
That was Hans Lorbert. Was a Philadelphia Philly back in the early 1900s, like I want to say 1920s, and he raced a racehorse on the baseball diamond.
On the baseball diamond.
Yes, that happened.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
And this is taking a long time to load.
Yeah, I'll give you the year. I want to say it's 1923 off the top of my head, but.
All right, we might come back to this.
All right, yeah, let's do the Blackhawks.
Let's go on to the Blackhawks for a second. I'm gonna bring up my Blackhawk notes, but you give me your initial thoughts on the Blackhawks for a second while I do that.
Well, the thing that jumps out at me regarding the Blackhawks is the fact that now, obviously, Taves and Kane are, they're not kids anymore, but they're still in their prime. They're still very effective players. Marian Hossa will not play this year, and I would assume is not going to play ever again. But that hasn't been announced. My area of concern for the Blackhawks is their blue line, because they always could rely on Keith, Seabrook, Yarmulson, and one other, an Oduya or Trevor Van Riemsdyk or something like that. Yarmulson's gone now. They've traded him to Arizona.
It was 1914. Sorry.
There you go. Van Riemsdyk is gone. He's in Carolina. Oduya is gone, and their number 3 defenseman is Connor Murphy. And I'm not casting aspersions on Connor Murphy, but he's not Yarmulson, and there's not a ton of depth there. I think the forwards are still there in Chicago, and we'll talk about guys who I think could make an impact with them. But I think the overwhelming concern with them is they don't have the defense that they've had in past years. And we saw Joel Quenneville storm out at the draft when he found out about the Yarmulson deal. This was not something that he wanted.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I mean, he sees the blue line diminishing. We all see it. So that's a real thing. There's nothing you can do about it. It's going to put a lot of pressure on goaltending. It really is. I mean, Corey Crawford now is going to have to really be that guy. And if he is, people have to start giving him a pass then, the same way we used to hear the same things about Brodeur. Well, he's got the best defense in front of him. Then all of a sudden, every year he was losing defensemen. And after a while, Brodeur didn't have much in front of him, and Crawford's in that spot now. What I do still like about him is they do still have defensive forwards. Taves, Kane, these guys play defense, Hartman, they check hard. So they can limit the amount of shots still, and I think that's going to sort of be their game on defense, is to always have the puck. I think they're going to try and be a puck possession team. If Nick Schmaltz continues, he's another one that always seems to have the puck. They have a lot of these guys. John Hayden is a big physical guy at 223 pounds. He came on the scene last year right out of college. He had 4 points in 12 games. He could be more of a contributor, but an all-around guy. If they have those kinds of guys that will punish you in the corners and hold on to the puck, I'm not that worried about them.
We do a little overview of the Chicago Blackhawks now for my news. And then we'll give it on to all that stuff. The Blackhawks finished first in the Central Division last year with 109 points, beating out the Minnesota Wild by 3 points in sort of a late rush to the finish line there, because the Wild had that most of the year. Then Chicago took over towards the end. They were interesting for them. I mean, that 109 points is really great. They obviously, of course, let's talk about the regular season for a second. More goals per game last year. 2.98 goals per game last year, which would put them at 9th in the NHL, which is low for them. Goals against per game, 2.6, which puts them at 10th. Those are not great numbers for the Blackhawks at all, to be 9th and 10th in goals for and goals against. Power play percentage was even worse, 18% on the power play, which put them at 19th, and their penalty killing percentage was 77.7, which is 24th. These are really crazy numbers, first of all, to win a division.
But without Yarmulson now, that penalty killing is going to get worse.
Right. And it's already bad. It's already 24th worst in the league. Yeah. So it's interesting. So neither their power play or their penalty kill, quote unquote, made the playoffs. Neither was in the top 16, which is kind of fascinating. They actually, of course, they went in the first round and they were eliminated by the Nashville Predators in what was probably the most shocking series in the playoffs at the time it happened. And then as time went on, the Predators showed what they were all about. It became, and we looked a little bit more at this team. We weren't so shocked. They decided in the offseason, of course, right before the draft, while I was trying to get some sleep in Austria, they made a trade, and they bringing Brandon Saad back, kind of to put the band back together a little bit, so he could play with Jonathan Taves again, and moving out, Panarin, Mr. Breadman Panarin, who was apparent, was basically Patrick Kane's buddy, and really they played really well together. And what's interesting about this trade, though, was that you're bringing back like a character guy in Saad, who's still very young. Remember, Saad played for the North American team last year. But the thing about by moving Panarin, a superstar type player potentially, was exactly what Columbus wanted. The Columbus needed that superstar type player, so they got it in after losing Hansen. They didn't have that player, right?
This is the interesting thing about that deal. The deal, I think, was primarily made. I mean, Saad played with Taves a lot of the time while he was in while he was in Chicago, and that combo, I'm sure they're looking to maximize Taves' offensive numbers, and Saad has worked well with him in the past. But I think the overwhelming thing with that is it was cost certainty. Right. Saad has signed a 6-year deal. He has 4 years left at $6 million. Yeah. Panarin has, I believe, 2 years left at around $6 million, and then he's a UFA. And there's no way that the Blackhawks, with those two $10.5 million contracts, we're gonna be able to sign.
Yeah, you can't have three of those guys. This is like another. Panarin to me often reminds me a little bit of Draisaitl to a degree. Not the same kind of player, but and the same kind of money perhaps when he goes up for that renegotiation. So you're looking at a big thing there. So this team also went out on July 1st and reacquired Patrick Sharp in a 1-year deal, which was, Patrick Sharp had a really tough season last year and the last couple of years with injuries. He's a gutsy performer, but this is again a little bit of bringing the band back together, bringing in Saad and Sharp, trying to rekindle the glory days of 5 years ago, nothing like too long ago.
I mean, we saw a failure of that with Ladd.
Yeah.
Nothing is guaranteed with Saad. Now, Saad also is another one of those guys that hopefully he got a little faster, or he's at least kept his speed, because that could fail him trying to replay with those guys, because he was never the fastest guy either.
Right. And when I look at this offense, I really see a stark lack of depth that I haven't seen in Chicago before. Honestly, that's what it comes off to me. Like the first line, is according to, I've been going by rosterresource.com to try to be consistent. They do a pretty good job with this. They're projecting Taves, Saad, and Panic to play together, which I think is probably right.
That's probably right. And and Russ and I talked about this, and I think that the guy who's going to make the team and could have an impact as a rookie playing with Patrick Kane is going to be Alex DeBrincat.
It's going to be fun to watch. He's a really exciting player. I really like DeBrincat. I was upset when other teams didn't take him. I thought it was one of those when Chicago took him, it was like, of course Chicago took him moment, because they had just won the Stanley Cup, right?
I mean, I can tell you this. At the rookie showcase, DeBrincat said Chicago has a plan for him. And then I talked about him just, playing with Patrick Kane just out of the blue. And he seemed to like the idea of that. And I think it's not that far of a stretch. And so I think between Hayden, between Schmaltz, between Hartman, I'm not as worried about the offense as you are.
All right, but Schmaltz I was really impressed with last year. Schmaltz was really good. Anisimov is another guy who
he's going to get 20 goals no matter what.
He's solid, right? He's always solid. There have been talks about him possibly being moved. I don't think it's happening, but I think that now where they are, basically a lot of that died down after the Saad trade was made. But then after that you go to their, right now their fourth line, according to rosterresource.com at least, is Lance Buma, Tanner Kiro, and Tommy Wingles, who's hurt right now. And Wingles will be back in time for the season.
Well, who's the third line?
The third line they have is Ryan Hartman, Schmaltz, and Hinostroza. Now they don't have, of course, they don't have DeBrincat in here, and I do think
they don't have DeBrincat making the team, and they don't have
him making the top 12. No,
they don't have Hayden making the team. So
and they don't have Hayden making the team.
Right, they don't. Yeah, and I agree with you on both of those players, but both are rookies, and
Well, no, Hayden played 12 games last year, had 4 points. I mean,
right? Yeah, he should make the team, but the question is, he's only 22 years old as well,
No, but he's coming from college. He's already strong. Like I think it's crazy to not have him listed in the bottom 6. I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite possible.
But as much as depth might be a concern up front in the bottom 6, I still think you're talking about Gustav Forsling, Michael Kempney, an aging Michael Roosevelt, Jan Ruda. I mean, this isn't exactly the 77 Montreal Canadiens with Lapointe and Savard and Robinson. You're going to overwork Sheldon. You're going to overwork Keith and Seabrook to the point that when it gets to the playoffs, they're going to be exhausted. So.
And remember, they went out and got Connor Murphy. from Arizona, who they're projecting as a top 4 defenseman for this team. And according to Roster Resource, they have him at playing with Duncan Keith, on the top line, which is possible because you're not going to put Keith and Seabrook together.
No.
So that's putting I mean, this is a guy they got from Arizona. They got Connor Murphy from Arizona.
Murphy has gotten better and better each year, and he's a pretty physical guy. And yeah. I think, and he actually is very good defensively. I think in the right system, you'll see better results than even what you saw in Arizona. I like Connor Murphy.
And I think that's what they're hoping on for sure. But it's not like he was a superstar in Arizona, he's
not going to ever be a superstar.
Which is a team that didn't have a good defense. So when you think about it, the whole thing plays out. It's a little bit scary, like Mike is saying. I mean, I just think that this team really, right now, to me, when I look at definites that are going to be there for them.
Well, they're a definite playoff team.
But yeah, they're a playoff team, but they have less of those sure thing guys and way more question marks than they've ever had. And now in saying that, of course, what are we saying? After 2010, they won the Stanley Cup. They rebuild. After they won the Stanley Cup again, they rebuild. This team rebuilds, and they do a good job, right? And they always perform better than you expect them to perform. Jonathan Toews had an off year last year. He's got to come back and be, Jonathan Toews again. I mean, it wasn't a terrible year, but it wasn't a good year by Jonathan Toews standards. Patrick Kane had a great year, but Panarin was a big part of that. So, it's different with Patrick Sharp than Panarin. So if Sharp's playing with Kane, that's the Brinkat, put DeBrincat in there with Kane.
I think there's a possibility that maybe Sharp plays on that top line with Saad and Taves, and that a guy like Panic, who's played a third, fourth line role before. Now he scored 20 goals last year, and they signed him to a 2-year extension. Maybe they don't want to mess with that, and if you get 20 goals out of him playing with Taves, but you want to surround Jonathan Taves with, Sharp, if he has anything left, could work with Taves.
I'll be honest, I would put Hartman on that line because he is a sure thing. He had 18 even strength goals, 19 on the year. Yeah. He was a plus 13. All you're talking about with Patrick Sharp is speed at this point. He's not even a finisher anymore.
No, right. I think he's speed and and clutch play, experience type stuff. That's what you're.
Yeah, that's great for the playoffs. But it's not going to drive you in the regular season.
Right, like a Justin Williams type player, basically.
He's not even Justin Williams though.
Yeah, but now maybe they want to limit his ice time, and maybe they want to play him in a third, fourth line role, and that's keep Panic on that top line and have him play with a Hayden or play on that with a Schmaltz. And limit him to 14, 15 minutes a night at most. I mean, that's a possibility.
I wonder how that's possible. And I wonder how much of, bringing kind of Saad and Sharp back in had to do with what we were talking about them trying to, appease Quenneville when they traded Jarnell.
I think it's going to have a lot to do with appeasing Quenneville, but I think they're going to be there in camp, and you're going to see a guy like Hartman's going to be a more valuable guy. And I'm not saying he's a top liner, but I'm saying they may need to put someone like there on a top line if a guy like Sharp just totally fizzles, which he might.
Yeah. No, he might. And this is a team, the interesting number I was trying to find, I've been trying to find interesting numbers for these different teams. The one that really struck me about this team is the number 7. Okay. And the number 7 for this team are 7 of right now, according to this. And even if you throw DeBrincat in there, that's 8. Or if you put Hayden in there, let's see, is that another one? That's a no. Hayden, yeah, Hayden 9. Okay, so if you throw DeBrincat and Hayden in, and we go to 18 forwards according to what they have here or whatever, you throw those guys in. 9 of those 18 forwards are making $1 million or less, which is a staggering number. I mean, that is, you don't see many teams with that many guys on either entry-level contracts or just really getting, money.
No, that's fair. You go back to Sharp, you're now talking 2014 since he had that really great year. And then, yes, he had 16 goals and 20 goals in Dallas and then only 8 last year. But when he had the 16 and 20 in Dallas, things were growing great with Sagan and Ben. So he was a very good recipient of that, right. Much like a Stéphane Richer. And I just think the wheels have come off Patrick Sharp. I think that's what we're going to find.
I think you're right. And the other thing about this, okay, when I go through these guys, so Schmaltz is making, let's go through this for a second. So Hartman making, $900,000. He's 23 years old, so he's still an entry-level contract, right? Schmaltz is only 21.5. He's making just under $1 million. Hinestroza, 24, making $700,000. Sorry, 700,000. But then you get to the fourth line that they have, which is, like I said, Buma, Kiro, and Wingles, 27, 25, 29 years old, all under. So you're talking about not guys that are on entry-level contracts, just guys who are getting paid very little.
No, they didn't mention Thomas Yurko, who they got from Detroit and re-signed.
Right. I don't think Yurko's going to make the team out of camp, though, Mike. I think they're going to throw him in and learn the Chicago way first, because I think Yurko lost his way a little bit with Detroit. So I think they're going to be a little bit, they're going to need
that Glenville could really get something out of. Like I could see Yurko being. No, we have him on here, as a projected extra skater along with Jordan Tutu.
Yeah, and to me, Jordan Tutu is a fourth line guy.
Right, but now the other thing again, Yurko, Tutu, Ruda, all make under $1 million as well. So you're talking about like these. This is like an incredible amount of they are very top heavy, obviously, with those players.
Well, that's
good money.
That's the reality now. When you have when you have two and the Edmonton Oilers will have to get used to this starting next year. When you have two players making $21 million of your salary, you're not going to be able to afford some of these middle-of-the-road contracts. So that's why a lot of people think a guy like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is going to be gone in Edmonton, because next year McDavid's contract kicks in and Draisaitl. The total of those two is $21 million, which is the same total as Taves and Kane.
And then half their defensemen are making under $1 million, and one of their goalies. So really, legitimately, you can sit there and say that half of the Chicago Blackhawks team is making under $1 million in the per year, which I don't think as many teams can say that. So, and we'll see how that plays out. But it is definitely a huge difference.
Let's make our predictions.
It points towards I know we got to get going. It points towards a rebuilding year in my mind in a lot of ways. And my prediction. I'll let you guys go first. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Russ.
Well, I think they'll fall short of the conference finals. That's what I think is going to happen with them.
Do they win 2 rounds?
I think they'll win 2 rounds.
Or win 1 round. I guess 1 round if they come short of the
conference.
Right, yeah, they would win 1 round if they would fall short of the
conference. Win 1 round, get to the second, right, and lose in the second.
Right, okay.
I think they'll finish 3rd in the Central, and I think they'll win a round, but I don't think that unless they've made trades to add a defenseman or 2 and maybe another deal. I don't think that they have enough to get to the conference final and win.
And I am going to hold off on this because they are part of my 30 wacky predictions, and I'm going to hold off on that until that's going to come out in 2 days' time. So
cliffhanger.
Thursday. What I think the Chicago Blackhawks are going to do this year in the regular season. So I will say that I don't see them. I'm not going to throw it out there. They're not going to make the playoffs. I'll tell you that. They are going to make the playoffs. But I don't think I'm not that wacky.
Well,
they are a team. This is the team in my mind in the West that could shock everybody and not make the playoffs.
This was a team that when Taves or Kane got hurt, they had enough depth to be able to survive. Now I don't think they have.
Right. What if they got hurt? Right, Mike? I mean, like, what if one of those goes out for the season 2 weeks in, and then one misses substantial time? Suddenly, Brandon Saad's your best player. You're looking a lot like.
I mean, what if Booster Juice went out of, or take one of your favorite juice went out of business? Like, it's just come on, that's too many what ifs.
HockeyBuzzcast would never go out of business. And are you going to be at the rookie game next week? I'm sure you are.
Yes, I will be
there too. And I'm going to bring that night. I'm going to bring a big bottle of Drink a Toast and Take a Boost.
All right, we're going to do shots of it.
You and Anthony to try, and boy, you will be up all night. I promise you, it'll be.
Shots of Take a Boost. I'd rather drink Jägermeister.
If you want to know more about Take a Boost, just check out my blog from yesterday when I was answering questions about this. But it's funny because I got from our buddy down in Nashville, our
Paul McCann.
Paul McCann, yeah, sorry, Paul McCann, who grew up in South Jersey, or right around there. He wrote me a text this morning. Oh my gosh, I can't believe, I love that drink. That was the greatest thing ever. So I'm going to have to bring some to Nashville next time I go. But there you have it, guys. Mike, enjoy U2 tonight.
I'll give you a review tomorrow.
Yes, we want to hear that for sure. All right. Without the buzz, it is just hockey. We'll be back tomorrow with another team. Talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.